Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I was going to ask the First Minister when the Cabinet last met and what issues were discussed, but I think we all know. So let's look at what Humza Yousaf said about the SNP's coalition with the Greens. He described it as worth its weight in gold. Today, it's turned to dust. The Greens have called the ending of the Butte House Agreement as, these are their words, an act of political cowardice by the SNP, accused Humza Yousaf of selling out future generations. They said he has, and again I'm quoting his former colleague's words, broken the bonds of trust with members. They say he has betrayed the electorate. They called the current First Minister weak. For once, have the Greens finally got something right?
First Minister.
Presiding Officer, let me say that what we have achieved with the Butte House Agreement, which, as I've said this morning, has served its purpose, is a record that I will come to very shortly. That Butte House Agreement, of course, that did last and has lasted 969 days, or another way of putting it, well, it lasted, another way of putting it, Presiding Officer, is it lasted 19 Liz Trusses, Presiding Officer. It lasted 19 Liz Trusses. And that record of the Butte House Agreement is a record that has seen the railways taken into public ownership, one that has seen free bus travel for those that are under 22, the banning of the most problematic single-use plastics, and of course the increasing of the game-changing Scottish child payment. Let's remind Douglas Ross that our record is one that we can stand on and one that we can be proud of. Can he say that in stark contrast of a Tory government record that has seen and overseen the biggest fall in living standards on record? A Brexit that has been a complete and utter unmitigated disaster and the worst cost of living crisis in a generation. That's why the Tories are on the brink of an absolute and almighty thumping from the electorate, and they deserve nothing less.
Douglas Ross.
I hope the cameras might be looking at the Greens, who all had their head down there and were not applauding. And let's be clear, the Greens never belonged anywhere near the Scottish Government. Humza Yousaf should have ditched this extreme party on day one of his leadership. But Humza Yousaf said they were worth their weight in gold. In his leadership campaign just over a year ago, he promised to continue the SNP Green alliance. Just 48 hours ago, he wanted the coalition to continue. This morning, he said it came to a natural conclusion. At what point in the last 48 hours did it come to its natural conclusion, or did Humza Yousaf panic because the extreme Greens were about to jump before he could dump them?
First Minister.
Officer, let's again look at the... I know Douglas Ross doesn't want to talk about the substance of policy. Let's look at the substance of policy. Over the last year, we, of course, have been the only part of the United Kingdom to avoid pay-related strike action in the NHS. We've delivered a council tax freeze in every single local authority in Scotland, despite the best efforts of the Conservative Party. We've removed peak fares on our railways, invested record amounts in our NHS, and through our actions, we're estimated to lift 100,000 children out of poverty this year through our actions. And what has Douglas Ross supported over the last year? Douglas Ross and the Tories over the last year have supported the Rwanda bill. They've supported tax cuts for the rich. They've supported a doubling down of austerity that is entrenching, I should say, more children, more households into poverty. He's, of course, supported his colleagues in England to give an insulting offer to doctors and nurses who have been left with no option but to go on strike in NHS England. Huge cuts to Scotland's capital budget, Presiding Officer. So I'm immensely proud of what my party has achieved, not just over the last few years as part of the Butte House Agreement, but what we've achieved in the last 17 years in government. I bet Douglas Ross and the Conservative Party can't say the same thing about their party.
Douglas Ross.
Well, the First Minister completely avoided saying what happened in that 48-hour period where he was determined for the coalition deal to continue and now say it's reached its natural conclusion. But I think, based on the answers we've just heard, it wasn't practising the lines that he's using today, because they are dismal. There is no defence at all. We said from the very beginning this was a coalition of chaos, and it has ended in absolute chaos. Humza Yousaf's government is in crisis. It has unravelled. He has abandoned.
First Minister, colleagues,
I think the First
colleagues, let's conduct our business in an orderly manner and let's not shout at one another.
I think the First Minister might be a bit tetchy today. I wonder why. He has abandoned the platform he stood on. He claims it's now a new beginning, but really it's the beginning of the end. Isn't Humza Yousaf a lame duck First Minister?
First Minister.
What an astonishing set of accusations to come from a Conservative. For a Conservative to even utter the words chaos, the party of Boris Johnson, presiding officer, the party of Liz Truss, the party of a Prime Minister that was outlasted by a lettuce, presiding officer, the party of quasi-carting, the party of the disastrous mini-budget, the party of Brexit, to utter the words chaos. No wonder Douglas Ross is getting redder and redder and redder, presiding officer. They are a party, presiding officer, that have decided time and time again to attack the most vulnerable in our society. They are a party that time and time again have denied climate science. They are a party that has inflamed community tensions. In terms of the Butte House Agreement, yes, we can point to the fact that we've committed £75 million of the 10-year transition fund for the North East of Moray. We can point to free bus travel for the under-22s. We can point to the great strides that we've made in lifting children out of poverty. We can point to the fact that we have some of the most generous grants for clean heat right across the UK. The Tories have not, presiding officer, in Scotland won an election in well over half a century. With Douglas Ross in charge, that ain't changing anytime soon.
Douglas Ross.
Humza Yousaf described this as a coalition that was worth its weight in gold. He stood on a platform to continue it, and now that deal is broken. This week, First Minister jumped before the Green members pushed him. Even his nationalist colleagues don't trust him. Presiding officer, I can confirm today that on behalf of the Scottish Conservatives, I am lodging a vote of no confidence in Humza Yousaf. He is a failed First Minister. He is focused on the wrong priorities for Scotland. He has governed in the SNP's interests and not in Scotland's interests. He is unfit for office. Shouldn't this be the end of the road for this weak First Minister?
First Minister.
Presiding officer, the Conservatives are nothing if they are not predictable, presiding officer. And here is an opportunity for oppositions to show what they are really made of. Do they want to govern in the national interest? Do they want to come together with ideas? Do they want to collaborate? Or are they going to play, as Douglas Ross has demonstrated, political games? And they will be judged very poorly on that. If they want to be judged on their record, let me say it's a record that we and I stand very proud of. The fact that our actions will lift an estimated 100,000 children out of poverty. It's our actions that, of course, have seen the fact that we've removed peak rail fares from our railways. It's our action that has seen a council tax freeze helping households in the midst of a cost of living crisis. So I'll leave it to Douglas Ross to play the political games that he wants to play. And if he wants to put our record and his gut party's record on the line, let's do that. There's a general election coming this year, and I can guarantee you that the electorate will give the Conservative Party an almighty thumping, show them the door, and they deserve nothing less.